Today you are going to see the definitive top 10 Mexican movies. Movies I would recommend to a foreign friend to get to know Mexican cinema. The most is. Forget the generic top list from the internet and incomplete lists. I will cover both classic and modern films, from comedies, action films, and even an horror film. At the end, I'll show you the rawest and most impactful movie from Mexico. Make yourselves comfortable here with El Mexicano Loco. Written and directed by Luis Estrada, a very celebrated Mexican filmmaker known for his political and social critique movies, El Infierno reveals the problem of crime in Mexico. It stars Damián Alcázar as El Beni and Joaquín Cosío as El Cochiloco. El Beni is deported from the United States to Mexico and has no choice but to join the criminal world due to the lack of job opportunities. I won't tell you more because I will spoil it for you, but if you're looking for an action film or a quick dopamine hit, this is your movie. Other films by the same director are Ley de Herodes and La Dictadura Perfecta. Starring Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett and directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu, the same director of Berman and The Revenant, the film Babel tells the story of two young children in Morocco who are playing with their father's rifle and shoot at a tourist bus of American and French tourists, seriously wounding one of them. This triggers a series of events involving three groups of people in three parts of the world: a deaf teenager in Tokyo, a married couple of American tourists, and the Mexican nanny who takes care of their children while they are traveling. The nanny, played by Adriana Barraza, crosses the border from the United States to Tijuana, one of the busiest borders in the world, to attend her son's wedding, and she takes her nephew, played by Gael Garcia Bernal, and the children she takes care of. If you want to see a wedding in the most traditional and popular Mexican style, you can see it in this film. One of the most striking scenes is when the immigration officials discover them and they flee, forcing the nanny to secretly cross the Mexican desert with the children. It won the Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture Drama in 2007 and received the award for Best Original Score, given to Gustavo Santaolalla, the same composer who wrote the music for the video game The Last of Us. Do you remember Gael Garcia Bernal? Well, he directed this film called Chicuarotes. If you're looking for a movie with a Tarantino-like Pulp Fiction vibe, but Mexican style, this is the one you need to see. It tells the story of two young men living in Xochimilco who try to make a living by performing a comedy routine on public transportation. It's very common in Mexico City for street vendors or comedians to hop on buses, and one of the most intense scenes is about robbery, which is something that can actually happen, and it is portrayed very realistically. Beyond the social critique, this film really reflects the violence within families in Mexico. There is a funny scene with two police officers that you have to see. So, this movie was filmed in San Gregorio Atlapulco in Xochimilco. By the way, if you are looking for traditional food, go to Xochimilco in the south of Mexico City. If I had to choose a Mexican comedy to watch today, it would be Nosotros los Nobles. Germán Noble is a businessman who decides to fake bankruptcy to teach his three useless children a lesson. Besides being a comedy, it's a social critique of the behavioral codes of the Mexican upper class and their prejudices. If you are planning to come and live in Mexico and want to quickly understand Mexican society, this is your movie. A key character here is Bárbara Noble, who would be like a Karen from the United States. One of the most meaningful scenes is the one set in the Central de Abastos in Mexico City, which is the second largest wholesale market in the world for fresh food, after the Rongi market in France. By the way, is there anyone in the audience who speaks French and is watching this video? Well, this is the second highest grossing film in cinema history. I would recommend you to watch it a lot if you want to laugh. Instructions Not Included, directed by Eugenio Derbez, a Mexican comedian who was the voice of Donkey in Shrek in Spanish, is the highest grossing film in the history of Mexican cinema. Valentin is a womanizer who brings different women to his apartment in Acapulco. One of them is a tourist from the United States. 20 months later, it turns out he is a father and the tourist leaves the girl with him. Valentin then has to work as a stuntman to support the girl. One of the most moving scenes is where Valentin jumps off one of the most famous cliffs, La Quebrada in Acapulco, Mexico. Another great comedy called El Bolero de Raquel, starring Mexico's best comedian Cantinflas, was also filmed at this cliff. Okay, so far I have talked to you about comedies or action films, but now I am going to talk to you about a horror film that, according to me, is one of the most important in Mexican cinema. Considered a classic of Mexican horror cinema, this film by the so-called Duke of Horror Carlos Enrique Taboada tells the story of two girls, Veronica and Flavia. The first one becomes obsessed with the world of black magic and convinces her new friend that she's a witch. It never directly shows supernatural elements, but the terror is present in the exploration of childhood imagination and psychological fear. For example, Veronica convinces Flavia to make a pact with the devil so she won't have to go to piano lessons. This movie illustrates very well childhood in the Mexican upper class very well, and I swear the horror in this film is very unique. Even the horror is very different from the American films and the European films. Another film that I recommend of the same director is called Hasta el viento tiene miedo. Directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu and starring Gael García Bernal, it is the director's feature debut and the film that catapulted actor Gael. Along with Babel and 21 Grams, it is known as the Trilogy of the Dead. The film is divided into three stories, all interconnected through the dogs that are the pets of the characters. Like Babel, this film has a non-linear structure. It is the fifth Mexican film to receive a nomination for Best Foreign Language Film at the Academy Awards, something that had not happened since 1975. It won the BAFTA award, defeating Amélie and The Pianist. One of the most shocking scenes is the car crash on the streets of Juan Escutia and Atlisco in the Condesa neighborhood in Mexico City. The scene had been planned, but they had not anticipated that one of the cars would be propelled further and crashed into a parked taxi, causing a total loss. Winner of the Golden Globes and nominated for the Academy Awards, it won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. It is a clear invitation to discover Mexico in the 1970s through the eyes of Alfonso Cuarón, one of the most celebrated directors of Mexican cinema, along with Iñárritu and Guillermo del Toro. It is called Roma because the story takes place in the Roma neighborhood, which is an upper-class area in Mexico City, where the director spent his childhood. Alfonso Cuarón based the character of Cleo on the nanny who took care of him as a child. She is played by Yalitza, who, before becoming an actress, was studying to be a teacher in Oaxaca and had no acting experience. Her sister was the one who convinced her to audition. The indigenous language that Cleo speaks is Mixteco. A key scene here is that of the Halconazo, when President Echeverria's government ordered gunfire against students in 1971, one of the most significant massacres after the Tlatelolco massacre in 1968, just before the Mexico Olympic Games. This film reflects a reality. Many indigenous women in Mexico have to work in Mexico City as maids, and when the actress Yalitza was nominated for the Academy Awards, she was criticized by some Mexican actors due to her indigenous roots. Y Tu Mamá También, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who also directed Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, won the Best Screenplay Award at the Venice International Film Festival. Two 18-year-old guys from Mexico City meet a Spanish woman, Luisa Cortez, at a family wedding, and in an attempt to win her over, take her to the beaches of Oaxaca. Cuarón took the structure of a road movie and filled it with a realism and rawness that had never been seen before in Mexican cinema. The film shows the sexual awakening of two teenagers, but it does so with an honesty and naturalism that broke with the moralistic or evasive tone of previous Mexican cinema. This film is extremely important because it is full of Mexican albur, that is to say, Mexican double sense. So if you want to understand Mexican double sense, you will have to watch this film. I promised you a very sad and very strong film. If I had to choose just one Mexican movie that you must see, it would be Los Olvidados. Directed by the Spanish filmmaker Luis Buñuel, the film reflects the harsh reality in which society seeks ways to survive in the face of a government that ignores them. It tells the story of Jaibo, a teenager who escapes from reform school and meets up with Pedro. They set out to kill Julian because they suspect he informed on them. Although it is a social film, Buñuel did not abandon his surrealist scene. The famous scene of Pedro with a bleeding can introduces the subconscious into a realistic environment. It won the award for Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival in 1951. Los Olvidados is one of the few films in the UNESCO Memory of the World, along with Metropolis, The Wizard of Oz, and Gone with the Wind. So, these are my recommendations for Mexican cinema. From the social critique of Nosotros los Nobles to the raw reality of Los Olvidados. If you are new to Mexican movies, start with Roma or Amores Perros. And if you have already seen some of these, which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. So, if you are thinking about visiting Mexico and want to explore the actual locations where hit Hollywood movies were filmed, be sure to check my next video.